Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to a very special Sunday edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. You may have heard we've got some pretty big news out of the world's most chaotic and volatile region, the Middle East. So we had to come to you with a breakdown of everything that happened overnight in Israel, between Israel and Hezbollah. Now, folks, we've been telling you now really for weeks since the takeout of Fuad Shukr, that top Hezbollah commander, very closely linked to Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, that Hezbollah, in addition to the Iranian regime, which Iran, remember, is licking its wounds over the takeout of Ismail Haniyeh just a few hours after Shukr was eliminated, they're all vowing revenge. And around 5 a.m. early this morning, Israel/Lebanon time, August 25th, Hezbollah was preparing to do exactly that, what they've called the first phase of their retaliation against Israel for the death of that top commander, Fuad Shukr. But it didn't go exactly as planned for Hezbollah. Even worse, this was a massive failure for the most lethal terrorist proxy in the entire Middle East. Big, epic fail for Hezbollah as Israel struck preemptively. Now, if you're watching us on a regular basis here on the newscast, you know we've been talking a bunch over the past few weeks about potential Israeli preemptive action against Iran and Iran's ring of fire. Look, we knew these attacks were being planned on the Iranian end. We knew they were coming. So if you're Israel, why sit around and wait to be attacked and then react? Why not go on the offensive and strike preemptively? And that's exactly what Israel did last night. And just in terms of historically, every time Israel acts preemptively, good things come of it. Good things translating to the enemy is weakened and humbled. Well, humbled is probably a stretch in the term of Hezbollah, an arrogant, prideful bunch, needless to say. And Israeli lives are saved. So last night, right before 5 a.m. Israel time, 100 Israeli fighter jets took to the skies and absolutely pounded Hezbollah across southern Lebanon, striking over 1,000 Hezbollah rocket and missile launching sites. Here's more details from the top Israeli military spokesman. Around 90% of the targets struck. Again, 100 Israeli fighter jets took to the skies. This was a massive operation, folks, preemptive. 90% of the targets struck overnight were short-range rocket launchers that would have been used in attacks on northern Israel. But there are also plans on the part of Hezbollah to strike Tel Aviv and central Israel as well. We'll get into more specifics on that in a minute. In all, after this preemptive strike in which Israel, wow, folks, they struck some 270 separate Hezbollah sites, taking out thousands of rocket launcher barrels. Again, stunning major preemptive operation and clearly a big success. Hezbollah, after this preemptive strike, I mean, Israel struck them on it before Hezbollah had a chance to launch. Israeli fighter jets struck and struck hard. But after that preemptive strike, as Hezbollah was still licking its wounds, it fired 230 rockets and 20 drones, which is nothing to sneeze at, needless to say. Most of those rockets and drones were intercepted or they struck open areas. Iron Dome was at work and working well. And folks, you can see the footage online right now across Twitter, now known as X. We're getting clips in from Israel, Lebanon, of Iron Dome feverishly working to shoot down these incoming Hezbollah projectiles. According to the IDF, quote, contrary, I'm just reading this straight off my phone, contrary to Hezbollah's claims, there were no impacts on IDF bases, not in the north and not in the center of Israel. So the two big takeaways here, Israeli preemptive action once again worked. Second big takeaway, Hezbollah embarrassed. I think there's no other way to put it. And Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, came out and gave a speech this morning, folks, trying to save face. But look, he's being ridiculed throughout the Middle East right now on the Sunni Arab side. Remember, you got the Iranian axis on one side. That's the Iranian regime. That's Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, the Assad regime in Syria. I call that the Iranian ring of fire that surrounds Israel on all sides. That's the Iranian axis. On the other side, you have Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, the more moderate Sunni Arab nations that have relations with Israel, or in the case of Saudi Arabia, may soon have relations with Israel. And that's a massive, massive existential rivalry in the region. They're poking fun at Nasrallah, and they're saying, look, you're the chicken slayer, because apparently these Hezbollah rockets that did get through, they hit a few chicken coops in northern Israel. So he's being ridiculed online, even though he's claiming, by the way, that this was a successful operation. And Nasrallah saying, hey, we accomplished our goals and we may not be done yet. And folks, remember that. Right now, again, Hezbollah licking its wounds. And I think they're asking, how did this happen? How does Israel know? How did Israel know this was coming? And I want to break that down more in a minute, but a quick reminder as I catch my breath here on a Sunday. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, number one. Number two, hey, if you like these kinds of breaking news updates, current events, focusing on the Middle East and Israel and how it affects you no matter where you live, and unapologetically from a biblical perspective, be sure to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube. Click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Folks, we're fast approaching 1 million subscribers here on the channel. Hard to believe. So we'd love to have you here with us every day as a subscriber. It's completely free as watchmen and women on the wall for such a time as this. And looking at our statistics, the analytics, as they call them here in the site recently, I saw that some 72% of our regular viewers, people watching every day, are not subscribed. So we've got nearly 1 million subscribers, but many more than that watching every day, yet not subscribed. Hey, we'd love if you could subscribe, make it official, so to speak. We want to get the message out there for a broader audience. And the more subscribers we have, it's not for our glory, it's for the glory of God. And YouTube will recommend it to more people in a time where truth is at a premium. Needless to say, we're bringing a message of truth, and we want more people to hear it so they're activated, informed, and educated, and they know how to pray. So let's get into it a little bit more. How did Israel know? And for that matter, how did Israel know that Fuad Shukr was in that building in Beirut on July 31st, that top Hezbollah commander, when they took him out? And how has Israel known time and time again? Take it back to early January this year. How did Israel know that Salih al-Aruri, one of the top Hamas leaders, was in a certain building in Beirut when they eliminated him? How about the strikes in Damascus back in April? How about a number of Hezbollah commanders eliminated in Lebanon and Syria, just nonstop? Clearly, Israel has great intelligence, no doubt about it, in Syria, in Lebanon. And that's very clear. But my buddy Chuck Holton over at CBN News, and Chuck is great, folks, and check out our good friends at CBN News for sure, and subscribe to their channel as well. They're doing some great stuff. Chuck Holton said he thinks there's a mole inside of Hezbollah and perhaps close to Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader. And folks, that's big. And it seems certainly that there is something going on there, that the Mossad has assets in Lebanon/Syria and perhaps close to Nasrallah, because Israel is getting superior intelligence. And by the way, the United States as well, U.S. intel helped in this. They saw the launchers begin to mobilize here in southern Lebanon, the drones, the rockets, and the U.S. and Israel certainly saw this happening. And Israel said, we have to strike preemptively. But clearly also, Israel has just incredible intelligence in the north. And we've said that for months here, not to mention in Iran, operation after operation on Iranian soil under the Iranian regime's noses. Time and time again, folks. And needless to say, August 1st, Ismail Haniyeh, the top overall leader of Hamas, not so dearly departed terror master, sleeping in a guest house in Tehran, not far from the Iranian regime, and taken out in a daring pinpoint strike. So Israel has incredible intelligence to the point where if you're Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, and by extension, you're his masters in Iran, the Iranian regime, you got to be looking over your shoulder and thinking twice and saying, where is Israel going to hit next? So a daring preemptive strike and very necessary. And look, I've been very critical, obviously, of the Biden administration and its conduct since October 7th and the steady tying of Israel's hands. I think that's the best way to describe it. But in this case, reportedly, the U.S. fully supported Israeli preemptive action. Who wouldn't in this case, you would say, because look, and I've said this all along, is Israel supposed to wait and be attacked and lose countless lives and then react? That's basically the October 7th blueprint, right? Be attacked first and then react. No. So Israel did the right thing in striking here preemptively. The U.S. reportedly on board with the preemptive strikes. And as I said a minute ago, I'm sure they shared some intel, no doubt. But there's a caveat here where the Biden administration is saying, okay, strike preemptively, but we don't want a broader war and don't expand this thing. And folks, before we get into, by the way, a little more about Hezbollah's plan here that was thwarted, what they wanted to do, and it was going to be nasty if Israel did not act preemptively. But we've got the existential problem here, right? It remains, even after the preemptive strike last night, Hezbollah thwarted, embarrassed. That's a good thing. We've still got some, probably 80, the numbers vary between 60 we hear and 100,000 Israeli citizens of northern Israel evacuated from their homes for over 10 months. Because remember, on October 8th, the day after October 7th, Hezbollah began these barrages. Unilaterally, Israel did not strike Lebanon, did not strike Hezbollah. Hezbollah unilaterally chose to attack Israel first, the day after the October 7th massacre, in solidarity with their brothers in Hamas, their fellow Iranian proxy. And Hezbollah has not let up since. It's been over 10 and a half months of steady barrages, close to 7,000 projectiles in the past 10 and a half months, launched from Lebanon into mostly northern Israel. We're talking rockets, drones. And remember, Hezbollah has held its most lethal weapons in reserve. They do possess PGMs, precision guided munitions. And PGMs do exactly what their name says. They're designed to hit the target with greater accuracy and greater precision. Hezbollah has not unveiled those yet, to my knowledge, at least not in any sort of major way. And we saw last week, and we showed you the footage here on the Watchman Newscast, Hezbollah with essentially an underground missile city. And it was pretty stunning footage, somewhere in Lebanon, I presume. So they've got some things up their sleeves for sure. And that's why it makes preemptive action even more critical for Israel when it's got intel about these threats gathering. But back to that point, and what do you think, folks? We've got a very lively chat, thousands of people watching right now live. What do you think? Leave some comments. We've got a very educated audience here. What do you think? Where is this all heading? Let me throw this out at you and get your response. Up to 100,000, again, between 60 and 100,000 residents of northern Israel evacuated from their homes. The north is a ghost town. I repeat, the north is a ghost town, the north of Israel. A place like Kiryat Shimona, emptied. A beautiful city. Looks like the Swiss Alps up there. I love Kiryat Shimona. Emptied. And folks, I was in Israel in February, and I can tell you, it's only gotten worse since then. I can tell you then there was an eerie feeling. I was up north with the Israel Defense Forces and our TBN crew. And I can tell you it was an eerie feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. Now, my TBN colleague, the head of our TBN Israel team, Yair Pinto, is there today. He's reporting right now from northern Israel. Check Yair out at TBN Israel. That's at TBN Israel right here on YouTube. Also Instagram, doing great stuff. And while you're at it, check us out. Instagram, Facebook, X. We're across social media here. Just go to at Erick Stakelbeck. But you can have, if you're Israel, okay. Israel, as we've said many times here, we remind you once again, it's the size of the state of New Jersey. It's tiny. If you're a nation that tiny, you cannot afford to have an entire region of your nation effectively shut down for almost a year. Well, guess what? Israel has two regions of its tiny nation effectively shut down the areas in southern Israel surrounding the Gaza border, and of course, northern Israel. Where, look, when I was there in February, folks, I stayed in Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee for 2 nights. And I can tell you that the people in the hotel where we were staying were almost exclusively from northern Israel, places like Metula near the Lebanon border. And they said, hey, we've been living out of suitcases now for months. We have no clear idea when we will be allowed to return home. It's unsustainable. Kids are about to start school in Israel. And the kids in northern Israel, what's their situation? Virtual learning. We saw how that went here in the United States, not too well. It's a nightmare. It's a disaster. And I say all that to say something must be done decisively in the north. Now, Israel, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, is saying now that he doesn't want a broader war. Israel, I should say, doesn't want a broader war. Prime Minister Netanyahu convened his security cabinet this morning, and Bibi said it's not over. This is not the last of it. Does that mean that finally Israel is going to go into southern Lebanon? Well, I say go in, not just in the air, but also on the ground, with the goal of either destroying Hezbollah in a major war, or in the very least, crippling Hezbollah and pushing it back, that magic number, right? 18 miles beyond the Israel-Lebanon border, beyond the Litani River in Lebanon. That's the goal. And by the way, 2006, 18 years ago, hard to believe, right? July, August 06, I remember covering it. In that war, or in the wake of that war, the UN, our old friends, were supposed to enforce this. The area in southern Lebanon, overlooking northern Israel, was supposed to be essentially a non-militarized zone. And we had the blue hats there of the UN, and it didn't go so well. And what do we have now? Hezbollah, massive, massive magnitudes beyond where they were 18 years ago, obviously. And they were a lethal force 18 years ago. It's another level now. I would argue that Hezbollah is one of the most powerful fighting forces in the entire Middle East. It's a state within a state, right? They essentially control southern Lebanon, no doubt, massive presence in Beirut and the suburbs surrounding Beirut. They are the main power brokers in Lebanon, the most powerful fighting force in that country. Yes, more powerful than the Lebanese armed forces. Again, Hezbollah has established a state within a state, probably 200,000, honestly, or close to that number, rockets and missiles, thousands of drones, precision-guided munitions, as we said a minute ago, and 30,000, 40,000 well-trained foot soldiers, including their elite Radwan force, which is based in southern Lebanon. So this is not a walk in the park when you're fighting Hezbollah, especially because of the close proximity. You are bordered by Hezbollah. They are staring down a barrel at you from Lebanon right across the border into northern Israel. Folks, I've been on that border many, many times, and you can see the Hezbollah positions. And you've probably seen some of the reports I did from the Hezbollah tunnels. We were with the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. We went into those tunnels. And we had, when we came out of the tunnels, Hezbollah operatives taking pictures of us. So they're right there. Now, granted, the situation, the equation has changed a bit in the past several months, obviously, as the fighting has intensified there in the north. And they have been pushed back to a degree. And the Radwan force has been dented, that elite Hezbollah force in the north. But Hezbollah, and they've taken many lumps, some 430 at least Hezbollah terrorists killed in the last 10 and a half months. May not sound like a lot, but it is, folks. For a force like Hezbollah, look, this isn't a million-man standing army. 430, including some top commanders and power brokers in this organization, that's a big deal. And that's why we've said, you know, Hezbollah may not be adverse, needless to say, to a ceasefire in Gaza. Why? Because Hezbollah has pledged, and we talked about this on the newscast the other day. And folks, reminder, if you miss any of our newscasts, be sure just to check them out on our homepage, right under the word newscast in that category. They're all right there. And again, be sure to subscribe while you're there. But Hezbollah and Iran have kind of backed themselves into a corner. Hezbollah vowed in the wake of October 7th when it started firing on Israel on October 8th, that we're not going to let up until there's a ceasefire, until Israel withdraws from Gaza. Guess what? Hasn't happened. And Hezbollah is kind of stuck because they said, we're not, no matter how bad they're getting hit and embarrassed and weakened, they gave their word, and they'd have major egg on their face if they unilaterally, after unilaterally starting this war against Israel, and it is a war, make no mistake about it, in the north, if they just kind of stopped, what happened? So they have backed themselves into a corner. So I think in some ways, Hezbollah is kind of internally begging for a ceasefire where they can regroup, lick their wounds, and rebuild and fight another day. But they can't do that as long as Gaza persists. On the other hand, they're masters in Tehran, the Iranian regime, and we've talked about this a bunch as well, also have backed themselves into a corner. They vowed, after the death of Ismail Haniyeh back on August 1st, the Hamas leader, again, snuffed out in Tehran under their noses, huge embarrassment. They vowed a crippling, unprecedented response against Israel. And then, as the weeks have moved on and the month of August has progressed, it seems the Iranian regime is, I don't know if I would call it second thoughts, but I will say this. We know for a fact, and I've reported this here in the newscast, that there have been major internal debates among the Iranian regime. You have on one side Masoud Pezeshkian, the new Iranian president. And by the way, it was at his swearing in that Haniyeh was killed. Haniyeh was in Iran attending Pezeshkian's swearing in when he was taken out. On the other side, you have Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. They want to go all in and attack Israel and barrage Tel Aviv, Haifa. And Pezeshkian saying, no, if we do that, Israel's going to strike back and it could destroy our economy. And who knows, even hit our nuclear facilities. Now, our friend Yair Pinto, folks, again, I mentioned Yair, our colleague, heads up TBN Israel. It's at TBN Israel here on YouTube. And Yair is on the Stakelbeck Tonight Show, our nightly show on TBN, frequent contributor. By the way, if you love the YouTube channel, you will love our nightly show on TBN every Monday through Friday night, every night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Hey, we're coming to you down and dirty here on YouTube. We don't have all the bells and whistles, but I assure you, we have a beautiful studio and some great content every night on our nightly show on TBN, Stakelbeck Tonight. We just launched in March. We're building for such a time as this. We would love to have you watching every single night. And Yair is a frequent guest. And he made the point on the show just last week that, look, his sources on the ground, and he's an Israeli Defense Forces spokesman, or he was until a few months ago. He's got impeccable sources on the ground, needless to say. His sources are telling him the moment Iran pushes launch, the Israeli Air Force is going into action. So last night, again, this preemptive strike against Hezbollah, very telling. And Iran is watching all of this, and they're calculating all of this. And all of a sudden, the idea of striking Israel directly may not be so appealing. Now, on April 13th, 2024, they did exactly that for the first time ever, launching over 300 missiles and drones at Israel. You know the story by now, I think. We've talked about it a bunch here on the newscast. Some 99% of those incoming projectiles intercepted. A failure for Iran, massive failure in one sense. But on the other hand, a Pyrrhic victory of sorts, in that they were emboldened by the lack of a response. The United States at that time tied Israel's hands and said, don't do anything back. Or as Biden told Netanyahu, you got the win, take the win. So Israel had a very limited response to the April 13th barrage. This time around, if Iran goes through with this, and I think they have to do something eventually, I don't know what shape it will take, but let's say if they go through with what's been discussed and they double or triple the amount of projectiles they launched on April 13th. This time around, Israel's not messing around. And Yair made the point that Israel's going to unleash hell this time if Iran does something like that. And Iran knows this, and hence the debate internally stretching on. But again, they've painted themselves into a corner. They said they were going to do something. Their reputation, their street cred in the region is on the line. And remember, in the Middle East, they respect the strong horse. Same with Hezbollah now. You see Nasrallah, after last night's failure, trying to save face today with his speech. And Iran, too. Now, could the eventual response to Haneya's death that they promised, could it be what we've seen generally from Iran over the years, until April 13th at least, where they either, number one, they act through their proxies, through their ring of fire, or number two, they attack Jewish and Israeli targets around the world, say an embassy or a consulate in a foreign country, but not Israel proper. We shall see. And we know the Iranian regime has been plotting assassinations right here on U.S. soil, including targeting President Trump. It's not me saying it. It's our own government here in the United States confirming that. Yes, the Iranian regime has been plotting to strike President Trump and former Trump administration officials. So, folks, keep all this in prayer, number one. And I believe, our friend Joel Rosenberg, my colleague at TBN, he hosts the Rosenberg Report. Joel wrote the other day, he believes prayer is working here, and that God is staying the hand of Israel's enemies in many cases, and Israel's snuffing out the threat before it even develops, because prayer has intensified clearly since October 7th. So keep praying, because God is moving, no doubt. I do want to show, another way he's doing it is thwarting these attacks and preemptive strikes. Do want to give you a few of the sites, I just jotted them down, that Hezbollah was looking to attack overnight before they were thwarted. Look, as far as central Israel, we knew they were going to blanket northern Israel with drones and missiles, right, or rockets. But the Glilo military base and the 8200 intelligence unit, Nasrallah name-dropped them today in the speech. We wanted to target them, he said. What he wanted to do was create a diversion in the north, launching rockets, and then use drones to strike these spots. Also, the Mossad headquarters was apparently on the target list. So Nasrallah, as hard as he was hit last night, preemptively in this preemptive strike by Israel, if he would have gone through, say there was no preemptive strike, and Israel was taken completely by surprise, and Nasrallah was successful in some of these aims. He may not know it, but he, as badly as they were hit last night, and they were set back last night, he may have dodged a major bullet, in that if he would have hit the Mossad headquarters, major military sites, civilian targets in Israel, those strikes last night that Israel carried out would have been much, much broader and massive. And it would have left a mark on Hezbollah. So very interesting, something to think about. And I just, again, emphasize the need for prayer here. But folks, something to think about. You still got Iran lurking, vowing revenge. Now they're saying at a time of their choosing. You also have Hezbollah saying, we're not done yet. There's more to come. This was just phase one. So Israel's still on very high alert, no doubt. Number three, watch the Houthis in Yemen. Watch those Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. Again, parts of that Iranian ring of fire. Now, the Houthis and those militias have collaborated over the past few months in launching rockets, not only at Eilat, the southernmost city in Israel, sits on the Red Sea, but also Haifa to the north. The Houthis also, just this morning, they're vowing revenge for the massive Israeli strike, and I mean massive, in late July on that port in Yemen, where it was a Hezbollah port, essentially. You could see the flames, the plume of smoke all around the region. It was that big of a strike. And it's interesting that the Houthis are vowing revenge. Israel's strike was in response to a Houthi strike. Remember, that Houthi drone strike in Tel Aviv, it killed one Israeli, just a civilian, struck an apartment building, killed this man in his apartment. So Israel said, enough is enough. We've looked the other way for far too long with the Houthis. They're becoming a major thorn in our side. We got to do something. So Israel did exactly that in late July with that massive strike. Now the Houthis are vowing revenge. So it's coming at Israel from several different directions. But again, Israel has shown, I think over the past month plus, look, with the takeout of Shukr, with the takeout of Hanea, with the action in Yemen against the Houthis, with the preemptive action last night, and with the strong message sent to the Iranian regime, again, if you try anything, we will unleash hell. So I think Israel, as much as, look, Israel's still in a bind, right? You can't have tens of thousands of people evacuated from the north and the south. It just, no nation can sustain that economically. And if you're Hezbollah, you could say this, and Iran, you say this is victory. We've forced entire regions in Israel to be evacuated for months on end. I mean, they have to be feeling good about that, right? And they're playing the psychological warfare, the head games with Israel, threatening, you don't know when the attack's going to come, where it's going to come. It's at a time of our choosing. So the people of Israel are on edge. And yet, Israel has sent some powerful messages of its own in the past month and a half that also has the Iranian regime and its proxies very much on their heels and looking over their shoulders. So the plot thickens. And folks, we're following all this very, very closely. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, every day. And if something breaks, we will come to you right here on the channel. And for such a time as this, pray and continue to pray without ceasing. It's working. It works. No doubt. If there's anything I've learned in my life, it's that prayer works. And remember that the God of Israel, to encourage you as I go here, the God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the special Sunday edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.